Good morning and welcome to Community Connections with Children's Services Council of St. Lucie County. I am just one of your remote Zooming hosts, Sean Boyle, and with me is
Ashley Mock.
And welcome to the half-hour weekly radio program on 104.5 The Flame every Sunday at 10 a.m. And also, because in a pandemic, we're not allowed to be in a room together to record a radio show, we've been recording the radio show on Zoom and rebroadcasting the radio show and plus any other conversations that happen after our 30 minutes on our Facebook page every Sunday at 11 o'clock. So really what I'm saying, folks, is this show is a 2-for-1.
It is.
That's fair, right?
It's a, what were we calling it? The show after the show, like with the bonus.
Show.
But you know what? Before we kind of get into our normal, I just want to say a big thank you to not only our listeners that have continued tuning into the radio show every week, but we've had some really great conversation with people on the show after it's posted on Facebook. And so anybody that takes the time to watch and listen and have those conversations, I really just want to say thank you to all of you because, we've hit on some interesting topics in the last couple of weeks. And I think it was a really good place to start. And I really like what we're doing, sharing it on social media and getting able to talk to even more people than would normally just listen to the show.
I know it's taking it to another level. That makes me think that we actually have to pretend like we know what we're doing on here.
Well, I don't know that we're Zoom professionals or radio show professionals. So we'll get there. I don't know.
That's what makes our show so lovable because you never know what's going to happen.
That's right.
All right. So as Ashley outlined, it's a radio and television show, sort of television part. But what we do at the Children's Services Council, above and beyond hosting a weekly radio program, is 5 things for our community. And we say these 5 things everywhere we go because this is really what our focus is. And our focus is 1, to make sure every baby's a healthy baby. 2, stop child abuse before it happens. 3, to keep kids off the streets. 4, to keep them in school. Even if there's a pandemic, keep them in schooling. And 5, keep them off drugs, alcohol, and other risky behaviors by offering programs and resources in all sincerity for all families in our community.
Yes. And I feel like we've kind of stepped up that in-school part since they haven't been in school. So there's a lot of different ways that we have been helping support families in the community and our programs. And all of that, along with all of the contact information for all of the programs that we work with, is available on our website at cscslc.org. I feel like in this pandemic, we've all had to adjust to this new normal. And we, just by the nature of the work that we do with some of these programs, have been able to facilitate some really innovative things that the programs are able to do. So there's a lot of information about that on our website. If you navigate to the homepage, there's 3 boxes down at the bottom that typically include the most recent news or fun things that are going on. And right now there's some really fun things in there. So I'd encourage you to go look at it. One of those I know we've mentioned on the show the last couple of weeks is our partnership with Noggin and Nickelodeon. Because we are a grade level reading community, we have access to free subscriptions to the Noggin app, which is really fun. It's a curriculum-based learning platform for kids, targeting kids ages 2 to 6. But all of the learning features Nick Jr. characters. So it's really interactive, it's really fun, and it's free. So we've got memberships to give away free for 90 days. And if you sign up this week, has to be by the end of the month. So before July 1st is Wednesday, right? Before July 1st, they'll extend that membership through the end of the year. So it's a really, really awesome opportunity. I encourage everybody to take advantage of it. We've got, I think the last check I did last week, we have about 600 people that have already signed up in our community, which is awesome.
Oh, nice. No, I was wondering if we knew the count. That's great.
Yeah. So that's very good. But all that information is there on our website.
We want that doubled by this weekend. By
July
1st, we want it doubled because we want to make sure that everybody takes advantage of that. And that's outstanding. Plus it's free. And the beauty of it is, and you and I have joked about this, everything's free, but then they're like, put in your credit card number because it's free for X amount of days. And then when you forget about it, we're going to start charging your credit card. Right. But this one, you don't have to do any of that. There's no credit card. You just put in your name. I think your email address, and you create a user ID and password, and you're good to go.
Yep.
So
Very
it's
cool.
really, when we say no strings attached, trust me, that was something that we clearly asked and vetted before we rolled this out, because we didn't want anybody, no surprises. So again, sign up. And if you have children or grandchildren ages 2 to 6, just ask them if they want to hang out with Paw Patrol or Dora the Explorer. And if they say yes, then you need to download
You're
the app.
good. That's right.
And you bring up a good point, or you've brought it up before, is you have to follow the link that's on our website. It's a special link to avoid all that credit card stuff, to get the full 90 days, to get it to the end of the year if you sign up before June or before July. So you have to go to cscslc.org, or you can go to St. Lucie Reads. Is it .org? stluciereads.org? Either one of those places will get you there. And of course, you can always jump on our Facebook page, because pretty sure we've promoted it there a few times.
We have.
I just want a couple of things before we get to our guest. Obviously, the census can't be a radio Zoom show in 2020 unless we're telling people, by golly, and yeah, I used the word golly. I don't know where that came from, but by golly, fill out your freaking census. How about that? I upped it. Fill out your census. If you haven't done it already, go to census.gov, follow the instructions. If you've gotten the postcard and it's been sitting on your nightstand or your refrigerator to do, literally, you and I have both done it. You have a household of 5, I have a household of 4. It literally took like 3 minutes. All I had to do was remember everybody's, I had to do a number count,
birthday
and birthdays, and that was it. It was pretty simple.
It's super simple.
And
no
so
excuses.
Please fill it out. And we've talked before, we're a little competitive as far as Children's Services Council and staff, just as a motivator, not in a bad way, but we can see where we compare to the state, to the Florida, and to the the different counties. And I'm just going to say, one, we're doing okay, but we can do better. We got to do better than the state, and certainly better than the nation. I mean, we're a far vastly superior county and community. So one way to show it is to increase our census numbers. So, and I'm also going to call out Fort Pierce. I'm just going to say, if you live in Fort Pierce, because I've seen it, we got some work to do. So talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, and you can do that remotely, and tell them to fill out their census information, because it's very important to make sure that we as a community get our fair share when it comes to state and federal funding.
Yes, definitely.
So another thing, and I didn't tell you about this, actually, I got do you know Maya Augustine or August?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She sent me an email and wanted me to let me know that at the Percy Peak Gym, starting this past Saturday, and they're doing it for the consecutive Saturdays minus July 4th, they are doing a meet and greet with the 2020 candidates. So it's like a Q&A session. The group, I believe, is called Women for Change, of which she's obviously a member. And I told her that we would promote it. So last Saturday, they had conversations with the sheriff's candidates. But for July 11th, now keep in mind, they're skipping July 4th for obvious reasons, right? Again, this is the Percy Peak Gym on 2902 Avenue D. But on July 11th from 11 to 1 p.m., it's the Meet the Candidates for County Commission District 1. And then at 2 to 4 p.m., it's Meet the Candidates for County Commission Districts 3 and 5, because there's 3 county commission seats up this election. And then from 5 to 7 p.m. on July 11th, it's school board candidates.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So I told her that we would promote it as it goes, and maybe even bring her on. But again, July 11th, and then they'll repeat it again with other candidates July 18th. And we'll mention it each time. But, encourage, just as much as we encourage everybody to fill out the census, we encourage everybody to register and vote. And we're not pulling for one party or the other. It's just, it's your constitutional right, and make sure that your voice is heard. And a great way to not only be registered to vote, but also being an informed voter. And this is a great way to stay informed locally. So big kudos to her and her crew. I don't know all of them, but we know Maya, and she's awesome, but for organizing that. And it's a great way for everybody to know the candidates and make it an informed choice.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
And then I forgot, I'm sorry, I know we got the guests waiting, but we also have something exciting we're calling Rising Star Saturdays. And you kind of hinted upon it right from the jump.
I did.
But
I did. Yes. So I think you're the one that came up with this idea, aren't you? I feel like you were. All these genius plans you've come up with. But
wow.
we have, obviously we have a network of after school and summer programs that we have worked with for a very long time throughout the community, and kind of in conversation with school district personnel and having this, what's this COVID slide going to look like in addition to our normal summer slide that we worry about. We had lots of talks with our summer programs and some of our after school program locations about the feasibility of them opening their doors on Saturdays. And so we've got this cool opportunity we're calling Rising Star Saturdays, where multiple locations are going to open up on Saturdays for most of them 4 or so hours, and just offer kids an opportunity to get on a computer and do some work that they need to catch up on, or if they are part of the Caterpillar camp that the school district is offering, they can get some help with that. There's going to be credit retrieval opportunities for some of the older kids. So it's just I think a really great way to show that our community has come together to make sure that however our kids go back to school in the fall, we're giving them the best opportunity to get started on the right foot.
Yeah, it's exciting. We got to give big kudos to the partners and first of all, kudos to United Way because they partnered with us. And while I love to take credit for the idea, it was really a brainstorming between Will Armstead from the Boys and Girls Club and Teresa Bishop from the Round Table. And then we approached the school district, who's been great and wonderful at partnering. And it's an example of, I hear all the time for people that don't work in nonprofits, they're like, is there a lot of duplication? Are y'all working together? And I can concretely say yes, yes, and yes. And this is just another example of how our nonprofits work together. And really, it's not, my child at my center, it's all of our children. And it's really reflected in this Rising Star Saturday. And I want to give kudos to you because we didn't know what to call it. We were calling it Educational Saturdays. And of course, any kid that's
Nobody's
like, hey, do you want to go to Education Saturday? They're going to be like, hard pass. But Rising Star Saturdays is a lot better title. So kudos to you for coming up with that. And by all means, check our Facebook page on our website for all the locations.
So that also starts July 11th. We're not trying to get the kids there on the 4th of July, but it starts July 11th and it'll run for 4 consecutive weeks. But all the information about locations and registration is all up on our website.
All right, so I'm going to let our guest in, who we said it would only be 5 to 6 minutes, but it's been a good 12 minutes.
I don't think he's going to be mad about that. I'm pretty sure. We have a great guest today, a longtime friend of our radio show, and we've got funny radio stories we'll share about him later.
Oh, I totally forgot about those. Oh yeah, we're definitely bringing that up.
our good radio show stories. But Marcus Dixon from the Multicultural Resource Center has been a good friend of ours for a long time, and is doing awesome things up at his center in Fort Pierce and this summer in Port St. Lucie too. So we're excited to have Marcus with us today.
Is that my cue?
That's your cue.
Totally your cue.
Say, hey, I don't know.
Hey, well, thank you guys for having me today. I really appreciate it.
So I don't know, Marcus, I know you watch and listen to our show every single week. I'm just going to let that hang there for a second.
Yes.
So for the last 3 weeks or so, we have been talking about, honestly, world events, not only the pandemic, but the discussion about equity and equality and racial injustice. And, we started off by having a conversation with Crystal Morris and Will Armstead about, how to talk with your kids about what's going on. And then we ended up talking with Kim Eardley about, parents educating their children about this issue. And then we talked with Kids at Hope because we segued into about connecting with kids. And that's so important. So it seems like a natural progression that we get to you because, when we talk about connecting with kids, there's no better example of that happening than in our after school and summer programs. And I remember we've been meeting weekly with all of our summer programs. And I remember asking the question when we were in it saying, hey, do y'all talk about, equity and equality and racial issues in your programs? And you were the first person to say, yes, that's built into our curriculum. which totally makes sense because you run the Multicultural Resource Center. But can you talk a little bit about, can you just expound upon that? How do you have those topics with kids in your center?
Well, we actually, Sean, we identified this a while back as an issue because kids were talking about it, not necessarily in a structured or informative way. We were just hearing in their day-to-day conversations about this happened to them or this happened to their uncle or brother, sister, what have you. And so what we did here is we actually did some research and we found a curriculum that's called Youth for Human Rights. And it's actually a curriculum that was formulated by the United Nations, which consists of Britain, China, France, the United States, the Soviet Union. And they basically created 30 human rights back in 1948 with the objective of bringing peace to the world. And so what we did is we looked at those human rights that they had identified in this Declaration of Human Rights. And then we were like, this is something that we want to incorporate within our program and have the kids first see that, there are other people in the world that are dealing with these issues or issues similar to this. And then understand that, we're dealing with it here locally as well, but, globally, there are people that are dealing with this. And so we started this curriculum probably 6 months ago. And what we've done is each week, the kids have we've talked about one article out of this human rights declaration. For instance, Article 1 is humans are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And so along with that, there's some little snippets that go with it. And then we just engage them in conversation to talk about that. And it just spiraled from there into, getting them engaged in conversation about a lot of things. And lo and behold, the situation came up with George Floyd. And, they were like, we were just talking about that a few weeks ago. And then so it allowed us to delve more into the conversation with them.
I would imagine in that teaching. And first of all, this is what I love about Marcus. Like every time I talk to Marcus, he's like, so, we had this issue, so we researched it and we found like the best way and the best practice. And that's what I love about Marcus. But anyway, Marcus doesn't mess around. Marcus doesn't fly by the seat of his pants. He puts the time and work to make sure that he's giving his kids the best. But I would imagine adopting that kind of curriculum, if you will, for lack of a better way to describe it, I would imagine you and your team are probably doing a lot of listening because they're talking about their experiences, right?
Yeah, they absolutely are. And oftentimes it's uncomfortable, because, we're like, well, whoa, what did you say when they make, when they explain, their feelings or thoughts on this particular situation? Because, obviously we don't want to sway them either way, but at the same time, we want to make sure that they feel free enough to discuss and say what's on their mind, and then try to give them a pathway to, feeling like they can make a change.
Well, and I love the comment that you made earlier was that you identified that they were having those conversations, but maybe not in a constructive or positive way. So I think you really just took that opportunity and shaped it into a way that made a positive, here's how we can make a change about that. Here's how we can do something about how upset you are, or how hurt you are, whatever that is. And that's empowering to teach kids. I mean, there's adults that don't do that very well. So yeah. I think that, it's really impressive that you've been able to find a way to have those conversations with kids, because to your point, they were going to have them anyway. Right. But they may have taken a different turn.
Exactly. And I'll tell you what we've tried to do with the curriculum here overall is be proactive, sit and understand what's going on, what are they talking about, what are their feelings on various issues. And then from there, I carry my little yellow notepad around with me, just like, it's my wallet. I keep it with me, and hearing their conversations, I'm notating different things that they're discussing. And then, obviously when COVID hit, that was idle time. And so, that allowed me to actually focus on what's the next step in the evolution of this, because our Thursdays are dedicated to health and social issues as it relates to kids, families, the community. And so by designating that day as a health and or social issue, it really allowed us to be more focused on these different aspects of things that these kids are dealing with, or they're talking about formally and informally, and then try to give them a more focused and directed approach to empower them.
Well, and I think that, just the simple fact that you're giving them an opportunity to express themselves and listen, I think, we Ashley and I talk about it all the time, like, you got to give kids a chance to speak and talk and express themselves. And as parents, sometimes in a hurried world where you got to get this done and get this done, sometimes when they want to speak and articulate isn't the most opportune times. But the fact that you're giving them a platform, because what they feel is what they feel, what they perceive is their reality. And so you have to let them communicate and facilitate and guide it, but let them be the drivers, if you will. So again, this is why Marcus runs one of the best if not the best after school program in our community, if you ask me. It's really,
wow,
it's really great
that's
work.
a lot of weight to carry.
Yeah, no pressure.
Well,
and it's being recorded, so
yeah, right. He said it out loud and all these people heard him. So Marcus, why don't you take a second before we run out of time, and talk a little bit about the after school and the summer program that you run, and if there are opportunities still available for families to participate.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm excited because we actually, I guess you would say, rebirth our summer impact program in Port St. Lucie this year. It's been it's been 3 long years, and we are finally back up and running. And, I'll have to tell you that through everything that we're dealing with COVID, I'll tell you, this program came together, our summer program out there, it came together, and it's running, from my perspective, so smooth. And I'm just impressed with the fact that the caliber of staff that I've been able to have out there, primarily because I was able to kind of nurture and train them within our after school program here in Fort Pierce. And so they were under my, I guess you would say, auspices for about six months or so. And so it was an easy transition to have them to go and do the summer program. But we're serving 27 youth at Port St. Lucie and the Fort Pierce sites. We do have a few openings based on our enrollment management, because we have some kids and families who are only coming for a certain amount of weeks. And it's been challenging trying to get them engaged in other activities. Obviously, our day-to-day activities involve STEM, science, tech, engineering, and arts activities, and then some academic components. But the kids are coming to us saying, hey, we want to get outside of these 4 walls and go places. And that's been a challenge because a lot of the vendors are not open and what have you. But I do want to say thank you to you all, because the Passport program, those trips, we started that last week, if I'm not mistaken. And those trips, we went to Paint with a Twist, and we have a couple others coming up this week. And I will tell you that those trips made a tremendous, tremendous impact on the kids. So much so that one of the young ladies that went to the Paint with a Twist, the lady that runs the studio wants to get her contact information, because she says once she's old enough, she would like to hire her out there at Paint with a Twist, because she demonstrated that much talent and creativity in her work.
That's amazing.
Well, that is awesome.
I thought so.
That's so cool. So just a quick note about the summer passports. I don't know that we've talked too much about it on the radio show, but that's a partnership that we do with the St. Lucie County Chamber of Commerce, where they actually invite chamber members this year to set up an opportunity for kids to experience, whatever their business model is. And I know, Marcus, one of the best phone calls that we got last summer was from you after your kids left that sailing trip. And I remember Sean ran into my office and was like, Marcus just called and they had so much fun and it was so good.
He told me, his words were, it was life-changing. That's what I remember.
It was life-changing. It absolutely was.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about the Passport program.
Yeah, it's very neat.
That's what I like about the Passport program, because some of those trips that are planned gives them an opportunity that they may not have never had, because some of them are $50 an outing. And like the sailing trip, I believe that was over $100 an outing per person. I mean, who can afford that type of outing and that's why it was life changing, because this is something that they may never get to do again.
Right.
Right.
And like you said, Ashley, we give thanks to Tanya in our office who came up with the idea, and then the chamber who negotiates all these rates for us so that we can get it
Yeah.
cheaper than what you just said, Marcus.
Yeah.
It's an awesome thing. So real quick, what I heard you say was you have a Fort Pierce and Port St. Lucie location. I knew that, but I'm playing to the audience. You have a Fort Pierce and Port St. Lucie location. You do have openings, but I want you to, we have, about 4 minutes left on the official show. I want you to kind of outline for parents who might be a little hesitant to send kids to a summer camp because of obviously the COVID-19. Can you kind of just go over some of the precautions so that if people have any doubt, you can let them know what safety precautions you're taking?
Yeah, we're following the same guidelines recommended by CDC. Obviously, we have hand sanitizer stations throughout the facilities. We have masks that are mandatory for the staff. We're strongly encouraging the kids to wear masks. Obviously, that's a challenge in itself. In addition, we've been graciously, we've received some thermometers where we're able to check temperatures of individuals arriving into the facilities, and we're limiting access as well to try to, I guess you say, stave off some of those individuals that may have symptoms or what have you, to reduce it as much as possible. So we are trying to, in addition, make sure that we're keeping the facility as clean as possible. All of this is something new to us. So, not saying we do it all perfectly. We're making mistakes here and there, but we're learning as we go. And, we don't know what's ahead of us, but, we're trying to follow the CDC guidelines to the best of our abilities. And thanks to you all getting us those sanitizer stations, as well as the mask and what have you, those have allowed us to really step it up a notch. In addition, we received about 1,000 masks from the county that we've given to our kids and families here, and we've asked them to help distribute them within the communities to help try to alleviate some of this COVID, people acquiring this COVID.
That's great. So we mentioned you have a Port St. Lucie and Fort Pierce address or locations, but we didn't give the address. So we can't do a show without shamelessly plugging how to get a hold of you, where it's at, how they need to sign up. So give us some of those details.
Well, what I'll do, I'd like to give the phone number and the website out, because once again, we're trying to limit access. And so if anybody needs to get in contact with us regarding the programs, they can call 772-672-3710. That's our landline. And they can reach us on our website at www.mrc4families.com. And they can get us either one of those ways. Yes, we are also on Facebook, and it's at MRC4families.com as well.
So I just want to, so can you tell the locations though? So if like somebody's like, oh, I live in Port St. Lucie, but Port St. Lucie is pretty big,
Yes. It's near 862 Glenview Court, All Nations Life Development Center. And then obviously our Fort Pierce site is 302 North 23rd Street.
And the All Nations, if those of you aren't familiar with it, it's right off Port St. Lucie Boulevard. When you go over the Turnpike Bridge, it's kind of right there as you're heading west, right there on your right-hand side. I'm very familiar with that location because Project Rock used to be located there. So I've been there many times. So that's outstanding. So you do have openings then?
Yes, we do have a few openings, limited. I want to say in Port St. Lucie, we have maybe 4 openings remaining. But like I say, because of our enrollment management, we're able to facilitate some additional kids on days that obviously some kids are out of town for various reasons or what have you.
And I think we're all kind of waiting to see what the school district is going to do during the pandemic, how they're going to open and to, what level. But even if your summer is taken care of, but you don't know what your kids are going to be doing in the fall for after school programs, this would be a good opportunity to contact you as well to kind of get those wheels in motion, if you will.
Absolutely. Hey, sign your kids up. We don't know what the fall looks like, but hey, I'm encouraging to be proactive and sign them up if you want them to be able to take part in some of the activities that we have. We've already begun planning for the school year as far as activities, and we're looking forward to it.
So we've run out of our time on the official radio program. I think we're going to have a little bit of after conversation. So if you're listening to the radio and you want to hear, because I'm going to tell the radio story. The first time I was ever on radio with Marcus, I'm going to tell that story. So if you want to hear it, jump on to our Facebook page at 11 o'clock. We're going to replay the show, including the after show conversation. But Marcus, in sincerity, if you have a child in Fort Pierce or Port St. Lucie and you don't know what they're doing in the summer, this is a great summer program and after school program. Or quite honestly, if you just want to start lining some things up in the fall, Marcus, give your number one more time.
772-672-3710.
And it's the Multicultural
Awesome.
Resource Center, an excellent, excellent program. Thanks, Marcus, for coming on. We're going to embarrass you here in a couple minutes, but we're going to say goodbye to our radio show audience. But we want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. And remember, it's our children, our community, our future. More than ever, folks, we're all in this together. We'll
Yes,
see you next
sir.
time.
Thank you.
So welcome to the after show, where we totally tease that we're going to share a radio story about Marcus. Well, I'm going to save that to the end so that people have to watch.
You teased a teaser.
I'm going to tease the teaser, but right before we hit record on the after show, Ashley, you brought up a great idea that I think it would be good for people to know about Marcus.
Yeah, so I was actually having this conversation with my mom the other day. So my mom is a good friend of Marcus's as well. But she asked me how long I had known him. And honestly, I don't remember a time that I didn't know him working at Children's Services Council. And that's been about 15 years, which makes me feel really old. So I guess it's been that long.
We're in trouble,
I'm not
Marcus,
really
if
sure.
she's feeling old. I'm just saying.
Yes, yes.
I swear. But one of the stories about Marcus that I will never, ever forget was actually told by someone else. And that was London Reeves, who worked for our local Boys and Girls Club for a long time, now works for the Boys and Girls Club of America. But he talked about Marcus as he was a mentor to him and what an impact he had on his life. And I know that it's not just London. I know that you have impacted other kids in our community that way as well. So talk a little bit about how you got started and how MRC was even born, because that's not 15 years old. I know that.
No, it's not. But if we have the time for it, okay. Well, and let me just start with how I ended up here in the area. I was actually in the Air Force before I decided to come here. And Andrea Howard was the executive director of Boys and Girls Clubs of St. Lucie County. And she had moved down here to help start the organization. And so while she was here, we had previously worked probably 5 years before that or so in Mobile, Alabama. And she was a Jesuit volunteer. And that's how I met her. And so once she moved here to Fort Pierce and helped start St. Lucie County to start the organization here, she was teasing me, say, hey, would you be interested in coming to St. Lucie County? And I say, well, that's my passion. So I don't know, though, if I want to leave the military to do that. Long story short, I ended up making the decision. It took about 3 or 4 years, however, for me to get here. And I did arrive here, and I started working with Boys and Girls Clubs of St. Lucie County. And I was there for about 10 years. And throughout that time, I worked with quite a few kids. I called myself a young Thundercat at that time, about 25, 26 years old. And so I had no idea really what I was doing. I'm gonna just be honest. I had no idea what I was doing. I knew what I wanted to do. And when I hear a lot of the young people that I've worked with tell me that, you influenced me and impacted me in so many different ways, it amazes me, because I'll be honest with you. What I was doing when I was involved with those young people was I was just trying to be that positive role model to them and to show them another side of life. I was trying to give them or show them things that I hadn't experienced before. And so coming here, it turned into if you want to say, an experiential opportunity for me, because a lot of the activities that I got the youth involved in when I first got here, those were activities that I had a passion for. Like we used to travel quite a bit when I first got here. I used to have them in Atlanta, DC, the whole nine. We would go to many places. And a lot of that was because I wanted to expand not only my horizon, but their horizon. So it was a dual purpose in doing those type of outings. And so fast forward 10 years, I left Boys and Girls Clubs, and I was actually working with Catholic Charities for about a year. And I was like, this is not exactly what I envisioned being here. And I was actually blessed to be able to start the Multicultural Resource Center after I left Catholic Charities. And I was grateful because, a lot of people that knew me through Boys and Girls Clubs knew of my work, knew of the caliber of work I did, even though I was working in one of the, I would say, the toughest neighborhoods within Fort Pierce. I was still able, and I shouldn't say I'm going to say we, because I had a great team. We were able to offer high quality programs despite the circumstances that were, or the environment that we were in. And so those kids and those families knew when they walked through the door each and every day that to expect the best. We expected the best from them behaviorally, academically, social, emotionally, and we were not going to let any kid use the excuse of their environment or their surroundings to stop them from pursuing or trying to be the best that they could be.
I think that's, I mean, I can honestly say from our experience, and I think I remember one of the first trips that Sean and I took to MRC when you guys were meeting in the Fort Pierce Magnet School of the Arts. Like, it was a different place when you walked in there versus, some other programs that we had been in, and the level of expectation was set, and the kids knew what that expectation was. And the parents too. I mean, you have probably one of the highest levels of parent engagement of any program that we run. And that's impressive because where parents are busy and there's a lot going on. But I think you set that expectation for them early on, and they keep showing up for you because if you do what you say you're going to do, they feel like they need to do what they say they were going to do.
Right. And what I have found out, we're blessed and fortunate to have the tremendous parent engagement and involvement that we do. And it's not by happenstance. It's by taking small little steps and implementing small things that eventually end up in, I guess you would say, adding up to that one huge thing of parents being involved. And so, we purposely try to engage the parents because, I'll be honest, I don't see us having much success with the kids if we don't have the parents engaged in what we're doing. Could it be done? It absolutely could. But I'll tell you, in my previous experience or 15 years experience with Boys and Girls Clubs here within the county, because I was actually a boys club kid before here. I came up in the boys clubs, when I was 6. And so not having that parent engagement, it proved to be quite challenging in order to reach those kids. We were able to do it, but I just feel we could have been so much better if we could have gotten those parents involved. And when the Multicultural Resource Center started, that was one of the prime or driving factors behind starting the program, because at that time, education, academics was one of the things that was lacking within the community, according to the SRA Needs Assessment Report. I'm sure you guys remember that report, right?
I do.
Yeah, and so I looked at that, and then we tried to develop ways to get the parents involved based on some of those results of that report, and we were fairly successful in doing it, and we're just trying to build on it each and every year.
It's funny. I hadn't heard Andrea Howard's name in a long time. I remember Andrea. I also remember when you went over to Catholic Charities to run the, I don't remember what it was called, the Multicultural Resource Center. No, wait, what was it called? The Catholic Charities After School Program?
Family Resource Center.
That's right. And if I remember right, wasn't it the Catholic Charities was just completely walking away from the program, right? And you had the opportunity, you had to make a choice, and you were like, I'm going to stand it up on my own. And that's, that's big. That's like, working at, I don't know, a corporation, and they're saying they're going to close the doors, and you're like, no, I'm going to continue on. And that's an entrepreneurial spirit right there. And that's, you took a chance, and honestly, I think it's paid off. huge.
For sure.
Yeah, it absolutely has. I can't tell you it wasn't scary and frightful, but it absolutely was, because they were closing their doors at the time. They're taking their funding out of Fort Pierce, Okeechobee, and some other areas.
Yeah.
And yeah, they basically told us we had 3 months, and they were shutting the doors down. And you know, I mean, like I said, I was fortunate to be able to, I guess you would say, have some leverage, if you want to call it leverage, or credibility with Children's Services Council and some other agencies on the work that I had previously done. And, you know, that helped to facilitate getting the Multicultural Resource Center started. And, you know, I can't say that I haven't looked back at all, because it has been not only a dream come true, but it's also been really great to show the kids and the parents that, you know, listen, if you have a dream and a passion, you have a plan, and you have shown that you can do these things in the past, that, listen, you can go further, and you can really do whatever it is you want to do without limits. And that's what, I mean, I feel that's what we've been able to do here, because yeah, we've bounced around. You know, we were in the school systems for about 8 years, various schools, and you know, that was quite an adventure. And we finally got, I guess you would say, our first home was First United Methodist for a year. And during that time, we were working on securing this facility that we're in now. And once we were able to get this facility, it's just allowed us to increase the quality and level of our programming, but also expand on programming, which, you know, is what the kids want, you know, and what a lot of the parents that have their kids involved in the program want.
You know,
I think.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like several times in this conversation, you have said something that I think really kind of stands up for our kids and the kids that watch what you're doing, how to succeed, how to overcome whatever challenge like you face. But the thing that I think has stuck with me the most is that you do your research, and you've said that more than once. Like, this problem came up and I researched something to figure out what we needed to do. And then I researched something to figure out what we needed to do. And I think that's powerful. That's impressive. Kids don't always think about stuff that way.
Yeah. And a part of that, you know, for me is, I'll be honest, I don't like wasting time. I mean, time is too valuable a commodity. And so I don't want to just keep spinning wheels doing something. You know, if it's not working, we need to find another way to do it to reach that objective, because just doing it over and over, it frustrates me. And I don't know if it's the Virgo in me or what, but it just,
that's military. Yeah. That's your military.
Well,
that could be it. But
and then I think we're grateful that you did our radio program and the after show, if you don't like to waste time. But I will tell you, first of all, I'm going to put in a shameless plug for Children's Services Council, because I remember when the Catholic Charities thing went down, and you came up with a plan, and we're like, yeah, we're right beside you. Let's do it. Because we believed, like you said, we knew the work that you had done at Boys and Girls Club. We knew the work that you'd done at Catholic Charities, and the Children's Services Council believed in you too. And I think that was obviously a smart payoff, because
we did good.
We did good. But I will tell you, people, this is how dedicated he is to his program and to his kids, because I have tried to get him on board here at the Children's Services Council on multiple occasions. And each time he comes back to me and he tells me, he's like, I can't do it. I can't leave my kids. And so to me, that speaks a lot about his commitment to not only his program, but to the kids that he serves. Not to say
one day
I'm going to get you on here, but and I think I've tried at least twice that I can think of off the top of my head. And each time he shut me down, but I respect it and I get it. So can I tell the radio show story?
Oh, please.
Yeah.
All right. So now,
yes.
refresh my memory, Marcus. Was this the start of the Multicultural Resource Center?
Yes, or was it?
Okay. So, and I don't remember. I remember where the radio station is. It's WJFB, right? Was that?
Oh, yes, it is, Sean.
Yeah. It's the one off US 1 in North Fort Pierce. So I don't even know what day it was. I want to say it was a weekend. Marcus is like, hey, I'm coming on the radio with Mighty Mike. on WJFB or whatever. He's like, come with me. You know, we can talk about the program. We talk about Children's Services Council. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. Now, granted, you know, this is
this is pre our radio. Yeah, this is pre our radio
Sean
show.
being comfortable talking about anything. I mean, this is like early on. This is at least 15 years ago, about 15 years ago. So we go to there, and Mighty Mike, anybody who knows Mike James is, you know, he's phenomenal. And, you know, we're watching a little bit ahead of time. So I'm like, I feel comfortable because Mighty Mike's a pro, right? And Marcus has been on his program before. I'm thinking I'm just going to have to sit there and be like, yeah, you know, just, you know, I don't have this big a role, right?
You're the hype guy.
So we go in there, and it's our turn, and Mighty Mike's talking, and then Mike, I don't know if he was sick or what, but he has like this coughing fit that lasted, it felt like, for at least 5 minutes. So I'm like, okay, the main radio show guy can't talk, but at least I got Marcus, because Marcus has been on the radio before. Marcus has been on this show before. Marcus goes radio silent for like 5 minutes, and I'm the only one talking. And I'm like, this is not right. I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I always throw Marcus under the bus, because anytime he comes on the radio program, it reminds me of the time he called me to be on a radio program, and he didn't say a word.
He left
me to talk for 5 minutes by myself.
Man, I guess we're lucky that you even got off the ground with Multicultural Resource Center after that showing.
No, well, I knew Sean had the radio personality in him. I just had to push him on out there.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is his strength. Like that. You know, that's a good spin, Marcus. You could say, look what I birthed on that experience. It was the start of a radio show program. And at the time, I remember thinking, man, Marcus didn't say a word.
I was also trying to figure out if I was going to perform CPR or not. You know,
yeah.
So.
Well, that's true, because he was coughing really bad. That's legitimate.
I also remember the first, and I can't remember how it happened. Maybe it was the voicemail at your office, but I remember calling in, and I was like, who is this person talking? What is this voice about? And Sean was like, no, that's Marcus's radio voice.
Yeah. Marcus definitely has a radio voice. Hey,
he's not using it right now.
If you want to hear it, call his number. What's the number again?
772-672-3710.
And when you listen to that voicemail, that is Marcus. Not the Marcus I heard with Mike James, because that Marcus was a mime at that point, because he said nothing. But that's his radio show voice.
Oh, you're killing me.
It's a good story to tell.
I totally forgot about that, actually, till you brought that up.
I love it. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, all right. Well, we learned a lot about Marcus today.
Yes.
And how long have you been in St. Lucie County then?
I moved here, and I was supposed to come here in 96, and then I arrived like early 1997. So I've been here
wait a
for
minute.
a while.
Didn't you just say something about not liking to waste time?
Yeah. Well, the military wouldn't release me at the time. So,
okay.
You know, I had to wait for their timeline.
Got it.
Yeah. He had to get a release, so he's like, how about I host this radio show? And they're like, okay, you can go.
It's been a great journey. I mean, it's been a great journey for me, you know, and I really appreciate the fact of, you know, encountering people such as you know, both of you. And I'm not telling you that to gas you up, but no, seriously, to help support me and drive the Multicultural Resource Center and bring it to fruition and continue to do what we're doing here.
I will tell you, and Ashley knows this, and I think Marcus knows this, we've been doing weekly updates for our programs, and, you know, we've turned them into video updates, and we just kind of let them know what's going on. And then we do a thank you section where we thank our partners, our programs, because they're all doing wonderful jobs. And I don't know if you heard this week's Marcus, but I thanked you, and I said one of the reasons why I want to thank Marcus is because Marcus is always straight with me. Marcus isn't one of those people who's like, oh, I got to make, you know, the Children's Services Council happy. Marcus will be brutally honest with you. So you'll be like, hey, Marcus, I got this idea. Marcus will be like, yeah, that won't work. So I truly do appreciate that, because I know that if Marcus, when I get feedback from Marcus, I know it's honest, and it's you know, it comes from a good place, but he's very honest, and I appreciate that, because we come up with ideas here all the time. doesn't mean they're good. So run them by Marcus and he'll be like, that'll never work. I'm like, well, we tried.
It's because of all his research. He knows
Right,
because of his
right.
research.
No. But I think it's a testament to the Children's Services Council as well and the success, because you listen to the programs and you value the feedback that you get from the programs, and then you take it, and then because you could easily make those decisions at the top, but you take the feedback from the programs, and then you come up with a decision. And I believe that's a testament to the success of what you all have been doing, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, and we appreciate you giving us that feedback, except on a radio program when the host goes silent.
Never again. Hey, we could razz Mike James too. He's a board member now of Marcus's, so we could have roped him into this conversation.
Make sure Mike watches this after show part.
Oof.
And Mike, hey, first of all, Mike, if you're watching, no tie, because every time I saw him, I wear a tie. No tie, but Mike can talk, except when he's choking and coughing.
That's true. That is so true.
All right, folks, I think we're going to wrap it there. I think the roast of Marcus is over. But Marcus, in all sincerity, thank you for all that you do for the community and your commitment to not only serving the community, but those kids. And one day we will have you on the Children's Services Council team.
Absolutely. I'm on there. I'm just not there physically right now.
That's right. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Appreciate you.